Hello and welcome to today's episode of Live with Impact. This is Angela Brown and I'm here with Omuugn and we're talking about common sense. I know you're thinking common sense is not common, is it? Well, it depends on the information that you have. So today we're going to talk about that. We're going to discover how we can find common sense in our everyday activities to help us make wiser choices. Please help me welcome Omuugn. How
Oh,
are
good
you
morning.
today?
I'm fine.
Is there ever a time that you choose a system over your sound judgment? And I know I do. For example, when I hire somebody, I used to go on my gut instinct, but I found that sometimes I was desperate to hire someone. And so I tricked myself into looking for the best in that person when maybe they weren't quite qualified. And so, not to trust my gut instinct on that particular process, I created a system where I have a scorecard and I rate them on a scale of 20 things. I have overridden what would be my common sense and I go for the system. Is there a time when you recommend a system over the sound judgment?
Well, when you hire someone, you teach them the processes that operate in your business, and that is common sense now in your business. If you have someone doing something that's totally outside of that, it can disrupt your system. You need to look at what the actual thing is and then base your processing on that, whatever that thing is. That becomes the common sense. And it's going to be different for a family. It's going to be different for an individual. In my individual reality, there's certain things that I want to accomplish. There are certain things that I want to learn. There are certain skills and talents and abilities and languages and things that I want to relate to in a certain way. So I have to structure my processes and my life around those things that are more meaningful to me. That becomes a common sense thing in my paradigm now. That's in my database. That's in my belief system.
You find that having a system in place and then letting it known to other family members or other people that you're working with that it also has some kind of a filtering out effect where they're like, oh, that's what we're doing now. And they start to follow suit with the process and either duplicate it and do it themselves or allow you to do it in an easier way for you.
Oh, yeah. With a big family like we had to make all kinds of those types of decisions. We had systems for everything. There was a job time, there was a play time, there was a school time, there were rest periods, there was the recess where you go out and play and have fun. And all of those things were targeted to the individuals that were in the process that we had. That's the way it is with companies. That's the way it is with families. Every organization has its own systems. Where we run into problems sometimes is that there are different ways to think about things. Sometimes we try to think about everything the same way. For example, there's critical thinking and there's creative thinking and there's analytical thinking. And there are the assumptions that we've talked about as a way to think and how we analyze those assumptions. Sometimes we don't know how to think the proper way for the thing that we're trying to develop our common sense in. And so there are a lot of things that we need to really understand in the how to think process so that we can think the right way for the right situation that we're trying to think about. Like, say, if you're in a business, you have to think in a business sort of way for you to be productive and accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. If I'm developing a family, I'm looking at developing personal traits and characteristics in my children. And I have a totally different program so that they can accumulate the knowledge and understand the lessons that we experience every day in a certain way.
You talk about teaching in different ways. When we talk about the insights and wisdom of Omuugn, in this book, you have the disciplines, and then you have insights, which are like little tiny snippets or like quotable quotes. And then you also have a poem format of the same kind of content. One of the things I find most interesting about that is there are different types of learning, and those three specific different types of teaching teach the same concept in different kinds of ways for people with different learning skills. I find that really interesting.
Yeah, when I designed the book, I went to my own experience. I put the quotes in that there were meaningful insights that I have gained on those subjects. That makes the insights kind of unique to me. My common sense told me to incorporate the wisdom section and the insight section and the poetry section because it would apply to the interests of many people because they would relate to things differently. A lot of times we just think of ourselves as a singularity, where in reality we're a complex combination of a lot of traits and characteristics that make us who we are. And sometimes we have important characteristics that we sweep under the rug and that we don't really develop. And so the idea is to take a characteristic like common sense and understand really what it is and how it functions in your life. Every characteristic can be handled that way. To me, that's common sense because you can build the character that you want to build by looking at all of the elements of the character specifically, one at a time. It's this balance in life that's really critically important. If you just live according to your strengths and you don't develop your weaknesses, you come out with a character that's deformed, if you know what I mean, especially in certain situations. When life is just peaceful and calm, things tend to flow quite smoothly for everyone. But when you're challenged, when circumstances don't go your way, when you have setbacks, when you have conflict, whatever it might be, that's when the elements of your character are really exposed. There needs to be a process that you go through to balance yourself and make sure that your common sense applies to many different areas, many different characteristics, so that you're capable of dealing with all situations.
All righty. Come back next week, same time, same place. We're going to be discussing communication. Until then, have a great week.
All right. See you next week.